Okay, so now that we've gone over the general principles, we're going to talk about infants specifically. Now, infants is the period of life when children, well, human beings in general, grow and develop the most. They go from being tiny little beings that have virtually no control over any of their movements. They can control their eyes and they can suck. That's about it. To by the time they get to be around 12 months old, they can chew, they can hold drinks, they can communicate with the people who care for them using sign language and possibly even some words. I mean, the amount of motor control it takes to speak is quite amazing. So, oh, and of course, they've learned how to roll over from front to back and back to front. They've learned how to get around in a non-walking way. So they may have learned how to hitch, which is one of the ways that I find very entertaining. It's the way where they're sitting down and they just scoot around on their bottom. That's called hitching. The thing that you probably call crawling, where they're on their knees and their hands, is actually called creeping technically. Who knew? The people who do all the coding on all of this, that's called creeping. And the one where some people call it the belly crawl, where they don't get their knees up very much, that's actually called crawling. So, and then there's hybrid versions. There's ones where they scoot around on their bottom, but they use one leg out in front sort of as a propeller or something like that. So that's fun. Some people call that the sidewinder. But in any case, whether they're getting around all the time by rolling, I've known some children who they roll and they roll and they roll, and then they pull up and walk. They don't creep, they don't hitch, they don't crawl, they just roll until they decide to start walking. In any case, that's a huge level of development because you have to have had the thought, I want to go there. And then you have to have told your muscles to do that and gone and done it. So, and then again, many, many children, probably I would say the majority of children, by the time they hit 12 months, they're walking. They may be doing it by cruising, which is holding on to something as they walk, or they may be walking independently. But there is so much development in that first year that it's a bit mind-blowing. So people have a tendency to sort of group different ages together. So there's the non-mobile infant, right, which is those first few months, in which case they're doing all of their communication with their eyes and their cries, because that's all they have. They can't swat things out of the way that they want. They can't roll over or crawl over and get it. They can't use any form of language, either sign language or verbal language. So those are our non-mobile babies. And they're learning a lot about how to focus their eyes at different distances. And they're learning the basics of trust, which is one of the most important things that children learn, is that when I express my displeasure or my discomfort, that someone will come and help me. They learn to trust the world around them. Children who don't learn to trust the world around them have a much harder time learning other things. They end up with significant learning challenges throughout their life, and they may develop something called failure to thrive. So, with those non-mobile infants, it's very important that if we cannot physically go to them, we say their name and we talk to them. If you're changing someone else's diaper and a non-mobile baby starts to cry, say, "Oh, baby, I hear you." You wouldn't say baby, you would use their name. Let's name this baby Angelica. Okay? Angelica, I hear you. You are frustrated. I bet you've been in that bouncer a little too long. As soon as I get done changing this diaper, I'll be right over to help you. This may seem a little bit crazy because Angelica does not understand your words, but she does know her name, and she can recognize the tone of your voice, that you're being conciliatory, that you're being caring. And as soon as you get that other diaper changed and your hands washed and the gloves taken off and the hands washed, then you go over and you help Angelica with whatever it was she needed. Then we have our mobile babies, but there is, of course, a frustration period in between when the baby is trying to become a mobile baby and they can't. They get really, really mad. They can't get into a sitting position, or they can't get out of a sitting position, and it's frustrating. They can't roll over the way they want to. It's all very, very frustrating. And so you might end up with some fussiness as the child is trying to master a new skill. And if you start to feel a little short-tempered with that, I'm going to remind you how you felt the last time you tried to master something you'd never done before. Whether it's salsa dancing or, I don't know, bronco busting or learning a new language, you were a little crabby too. And you could express your feelings, and they can't. So all they do is they fuss about it because they can't say, this is frustrating. I thought I would be good at this, and I'm not. So when babies are learning a new skill, they're going to be frustrated and they're going to be crabby. This actually kind of continues on through all of life. So let's just let them be with that. Give them a little bit of grace, okay? So then we've got our babies that are creeping and crawling and hitching around the room, and they're starting to communicate with babbles back and forth where they go, and you go, oh, really? And then what happened? So what you're doing when you're talking back and forth with that baby who makes no sense because they don't know any words is you're teaching them the rhythms of your language so that they will know how to ask questions in your language. So in English, that means there's a question mark at the end of the sentence. The words go up at the end, don't they? Okay, so they're learning those kinds of things when they're babbling and you're babbling back, or you're talking back. And we give them lots of things to reach and stretch for. They will start to have favorites of things. And so we put those things maybe just a little bit out of reach so that they have to creep or crawl or roll or hitch to go get those things. And we start to do things to help build their upper body strength. So they may need to have tummy time even if they don't want to, because they have to build their strength in their shoulder area so that they can pull up on things and catch themselves and cruise along. So they have to develop those. They also have to develop those ankle and feet muscles. So please don't put shoes on babies because they can't develop those muscles if they're wrapped up in a pair of Nikes. Okay? And then we have our cruisers, the children who have started pulling up. And by the time they're pulling up, they've probably been eating real food for a while, and now they're working on what's called their pincher grasp. They're trying to grab the Cheerios and bring them to their mouths. And they might even be holding a spoon and very messily putting the yogurt in their mouth. Okay? So there's basically 3 different developmental stages inside that 1 year, which is mind-blowing. You don't have that in your 20s. You don't have 3 different developmental stages when you're 26. You're just in your 20s. That's all there is to it. So the fact that an infant has these different developmental stages is amazing. You've got a form in your file section here that is, what is it like to be a 1-year-old or to be an infant, I think is what it's called. You'll have those for each of the upcoming sections. And of course, you'll have a quiz. So I look forward to seeing you in the toddler world. Toddlers, attack!